All right. Well, good morning or good afternoon to everyone who is here with us today, whatever time you are watching this webinar. Thank you so much for joining us today. This would be, if you've watched the other webinars, you will notice that this is our third webinar. If this is the first one that you're watching, welcome, and definitely check out our other webinars that were about coping skills for emotional eating and about self-care. Today, we are going to cover self-monitoring, which is also known as logging and tracking, just depending on who you talk to. I will do introductions. I am Lindsay King. I am a clinical psychologist and I work for Peace Health Bariatric Surgery Center in Springfield, Oregon. And I am with my co-host today, Amy Gruber, and I will let her do her own introduction.
I'm Amy Gruber. I'm also a clinical psychologist, and I'm up here in Vancouver, Washington at the Specialties Clinic at Peace Health.
All right. So, like I said, today we are actually talking about self-monitoring, which is also known as logging and tracking. And next we will go into an overview just to give you guys an idea of what we're about to talk about today.
So the overview of what we plan to cover in this webinar is starting with self-monitoring, something you'll hear the psychologists say, Lindsay or myself, which, incorporates emotional eating logs, and then logging and tracking, something that you'll likely hear the dietitians say, which is more about keeping food journals, keeping fitness journals, the utilization of different apps, which we'll talk about as well, and meal planning and preparation.
All right. So let's jump in. So, self-monitoring versus logging and tracking. You may hear these two different things. And honestly, as I said earlier, it really, some of my patients will say, isn't it just semantics? And kind of it is. I mean, when I say self-monitoring, I am actually thinking of people, especially in the bariatric surgery clinic, coming in and looking at their behaviors related to their eating, which is obviously what the dietitians are probably looking at when they tell you to log and track. There are just different things that they mean. So I'll go over that. So self-monitoring refers to the observing and recording of different patterns that's followed by feedback on those behaviors. The goal of self-monitoring is to increase your self-awareness of whatever the target behaviors are and what the outcomes of those behaviors are. And logging and tracking refers to recording of behaviors, usually in a journal or a tracking app. The dietitians will also give you feedback when you bring in your journals or your apps, again, with the goal of increasing your self awareness of eating behavior. So, psychologists and dietitians may use different terms, but essentially, our purpose and goal is the same: to increase your self awareness, gaining insight into your habits or behaviors.
Yeah, I feel like self-awareness is always going to be key, right? And these are significant tools in how to increase and maintain self-awareness.
Most definitely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So self-monitoring. So what this is a psychological technique where you're asked to observe and record a few specific things. Your thoughts. What are you thinking in any given moment? Emotions. What are you feeling in that same moment? Body feelings. What are the sensations in your body? Tension, um, agitation, tightness, um, behaviors. Like, what are you doing? And cravings and desires. Like, what are you being pulled towards? What are you wanting or feeling like you're needing? So this technique of self-monitoring provides us with more immediate feedback rather than waiting until you're sitting in an appointment with a psychologist. Um, so it allows you in between sessions to really kind of practice increasing your self-awareness via this practice of self-monitoring. It also assists us in helping to identify obstacles to your goals. Oftentimes we know that we want to get over there, but we feel like we have the tools to get there, but there's something in the way. We don't know what it is. So utilizing self-monitoring techniques can really help you and us in working with you identify what the obstacles were that maybe wouldn't be as easy to identify.
Definitely. And if you guys have seen the other webinars, you probably heard Amy and I talk about the fact that when we ask you to observe behavior, it is without judgment. So a lot of times when people are self-monitoring and we're having you look at things, we're not asking for you to bring that into us so then we can go over it like a teacher, where we're like, well, look at what you did. It really is meant to gain insight. It's meant for you to gain insight and learn how to look at your behaviors and identify the obstacles to your goals that are happening without judgment as much as you can. We realize that that is a lot to ask.
Mhm.
We all have an inner critic, but we want you guys to try and work on being able to observe what you're doing with curiosity, as Amy has said in other webinars, curiosity over judgment, so that you can just, increase self-awareness, like we said earlier. Okay, so self-monitoring continued. We put in a little bit of research here just to help you guys kind of see, that there's backup to this. This isn't just psychologists coming in and going, nope, self-monitoring is awesome. There's actually been some research that backs up that self-monitoring suggests that monitoring a goal or progress of a goal is an effective strategy, and interventions that increase the frequency of your monitoring. So what we mean by this is if you're checking in with yourself or with a psychologist or even a dietitian on a weekly, daily, or monthly basis, this actually is more likely to promote behavior change. So if you're not going to come in and see myself or a dietitian or Amy or their dietitians for a month, like you just come in and you've seen them, self-monitoring is actually you holding yourself accountable on a daily basis, being able to just watch what you're doing. And we've noticed that self-monitoring actually increases behavior change. So that people, if they're more aware of what they're doing because they're writing it down and they're being very mindful of their behavior, they actually start to notice change even before they start to try to make change. They've reported that to me. I've had patients and clients come in and say, I was trying not to change anything, and I noticed that I was working out more because I was writing it down, or I was eating more vegetables because I was writing down what I was doing. So even just small changes start to happen because you guys are writing things down. So now there are many different ways that you can engage in self-monitoring, many tools that are out there. You've got emotional eating food logs. You can weigh yourself, or you can use fitness and food journals or apps. And something that I also didn't write on here as a way to self-monitor, tape measuring. We actually have many people who come through where stepping on a scale is very difficult. It has been discouraging. It has been something that will ruin their whole day. And so some of the people that self-monitor in our own program, actually, instead of stepping on a scale, because they have to step on a scale when they come see us, will actually use a tape measure. And they'll notice that they're losing inches, even if they're not really seeing a change on the scale. So that's just another, I didn't add it in, but it's definitely something that we use to help people self-monitor.
Yeah, I want to add, like just hearing you say that, Lindsay, also made me think about a lot of folks will talk about like paying attention to how their clothes fit them, So when clothes get looser, that can be another way to self-monitor, or when clothes get tighter, that's another way to be able to self-monitor. And folks will often take pictures of themselves to be able to see and track the changes, because it's hard when you're, observing yourself on a daily basis. It can be hard to know all of the ways in which things are shifting and changing. So yeah, just as you mentioned that, those other two popped into my head as well.
Yeah. So many different ways. Even if we didn't put them on here, there's so many ways to self-monitor that don't necessarily have to do with stepping on a scale. And not sure about Amy, you may, use this term as well, but I use non-scale victories a
Yep.
lot of the time with patients and clients because the scale has been such an enemy for them in the past. Um, so there's just other ways to self-monitor that have nothing to do with the scale. So if you're using something that's not on here, but it's a way that you self-monitor and it's helping you and assisting you meet your goal, definitely continue to do those behaviors.
Yeah, yeah. I love the non-scale victories. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yes. All right.
So here we have an example of an emotional eating log, like what it's going to look like. We've got the days of the week, like on the side there. So it allows you to kind of lean in like over the course of each day. So on Monday, like you'll be able to kind of, and we want you to kind of lean into the things that feel notable. So the time, is it something that happened? You can either put the exact time, you can put morning, afternoon, or evening, however you want to be able to capture the time. And the food, what's the food that you're eating? And then wanting you to be able to kind of pay attention to what the emotions are before you ate. Like what happened? What do you think you were feeling? Were you feeling stressed and you ate a particular food to be able to tend to the stress? Were you feeling some grief or sadness and like, and then what was the food that you ate? And then to be able to, think about a whole nother section on other ways I did or could have coped with the emotion. So what we're trying to do here is we're trying to kind of expand your thinking a little bit. We want to increase your self-awareness and to be able to support you in just uh, being able to kind of think about different ways of doing things. So if you were having a certain emotion like sadness or stress or whatever it was, and there was a certain food that you either ate or felt pulled towards, you can also talk about, this is the expansion piece, or other ways that you could have coped with that emotion or other ways that you did cope with that emotion. When you're completing an emotional eating log, what we're doing is looking for patterns. Is there a specific time of day? Is there a specific emotion that tends to be, repeatedly a challenge? Are there specific foods that you're being pulled towards? And, like how able are you to be able to think about other things that you could do? How often are you able to kind of do other things? And again, we're going to keep coming back to this piece, no judgment. This is information gathering, this is data collection. It's like we're wanting to put you in the mode of like a research scientist, where you are both the scientist and the research subject. We want you to engage with curiosity and wonder and really learn about yourself. Judgment is not ever going to be helpful or productive. It actually creates the opposite effect, where it leaves you feeling badly about yourself, and it can just interrupt and disrupt the whole process.
Agreed, agreed. Definitely, the idea is data collection, increasing self-awareness, and trying, we know it's hard, but trying to put the judgment aside. We're definitely not going to judge the behaviors when you bring in an emotional eating log. The dietitians that I work with, and I'm sure Amy is the same, they're not looking at those food choices that they asked you to write down so that they can judge what you're doing. It really is meant to help you figure out where you're struggling, where the obstacles are, so we can make those changes. All right, so next obviously is just an example. So exactly what you saw on the first slide, last slide, and now we've just kind of put in different things. And it's more, I've taken this from, and Amy, I'm sure is the same, a lot of the time when patients and clients come in, they're reporting a lot of the same behaviors that they're struggling with. Like I have many, many patients who they struggle at the end of the day, or they struggle over the weekend. And so this was more something where it's a conglomeration of a lot of the things that I've heard over time. There is not one specific patient or client that was in mind when we created this. So even if someone's watching this, and you are patients and clients, or Amy's and mine, you're like, oh my gosh, they wrote my stuff down. No, there's no one specific in mind when we were doing, just a lot of people struggle with the same obstacles. So it's very, very normal to struggle. It's very, very normal to struggle at the end of the day or over the weekend. So we just kind of give you an example of what this might look like if you were filling out your own, so that you had an idea and you weren't just looking at a blank emotional eating log going, how am I supposed to fill this out? So this is kind of an example. So let's just say you get all the way through Monday, you've been doing really great. You get to the end of the day, you even had dinner and you had what you meal planned and prepped. And then all of a sudden, after dinner, maybe an hour after dinner, maybe 2 hours after dinner, all of a sudden you just start craving chips. And you've been stressed all day, you've been frustrated, you just want to decompress. And so the craving just, it really gets you and you're tired. We're at the end of the day where all of our mental energy is pretty much spent, so it's a very difficult time of day for a lot of us to engage in those behaviors that we'd rather do. And sometimes we end up eating. So, this pretend hypothetical person at 7 p.m. had some chips because they'd had a stressful and frustrating day. That's what they were thinking and feeling. And then we write down the other ways that what you'd want to do instead, other ways that maybe if you thought it through, maybe had more energy, or maybe you built that habit or routine that you want to be doing instead of eating chips when you're stressed or frustrated. So, this person thought to themselves, I want to go for a walk, call a friend, or listen to music. These are just 2 or 3 different behaviors that you feel may work if you're feeling stressed or frustrated instead of going to food. So these other ones, I just put down that all day they felt like they were on track. They did their menu plan, they ate their protein, their produce, they wanted to get back on track. That's what they were feeling. And then the things that they did, they exercised in the morning, they listened to music on the way home from work, and they had an herbal tea after dinner, kind of that hand to mouth, So same thing for them on Wednesday and Thursday. They felt really good. They engaged in that same habit and routine, the routines that they're trying to build. And then Friday comes along, right? And again, there's no one specific in mind. I just have so many people, myself included. Like, you get to the end
Same.
of a work week, same. You get to the end of a work week and you want a reward, and it's been stressful and you are tired and you would like to reward and treat yourself. Okay. So, like I said, maybe you get through dinner and you've done your meal planning and prepping and you had a great plan. And for some reason, like I said here, you're stressed and you're relieved to get to the end of the week. So it's stress and reward. It doesn't necessarily just have to be like one feeling. So you have some ice cream, and like I said, here at the end, other ways that you could have coped, maybe taken a bath or lit a candle, both. You can light a candle, you can take a bath, and you can put on a facial and listen to music all at the same time. You can do all of these things, got all together. Um, you could watch a movie. So there's all kinds of things that we can do that would relieve our stress and also feel very rewarding that are not food related. And this is what the emotional food log does. It gives you these examples so that you're already thinking forward to try to get yourself a plan of maybe what you think might work as time goes on. And like I said, if you look through, this is what I hear many, many times from many, many people, that once they've blown it, in their words, not mine, but they'll say that, like, they feel like they let themselves down, they feel like they've blown it, they've already undone their progress based on having something on a Friday evening that was a little bit more calorie or carb heavy for them. And so it tends to affect their whole weekend a lot of the time. And they'll eat things, throughout that day, or maybe every night they'll treat themselves. And they'll be angry and disappointed with themselves because they messed up or they blew it on that Friday evening. And so they'll continue the behavior, right? Because it's such a negative, it's that judgment that we're trying to get you guys away from. And so again, in that last column, it's more thinking about things that maybe would have worked. Maybe spending time with a friend or calling someone and talking about, that anger or that frustration or disappointment with yourself. Listening to a podcast on health that maybe refocuses you on the things that you're really wanting to stay focused on. That might be able to be enough to kind of reset how you're feeling. Reading a book or taking a walk. So any of these would work. And again, I would hear the same thing about Sunday, that it's just an all day thing. They're going to reset on Monday. I'll start again on Monday. I hear that a lot. I've done it myself. So no one is judging anyone here because we've all been through these behaviors.
Yep.
Yeah.
I feel like,
So
yeah. Oh, go ahead.
yeah. So yeah, I was just gonna say, so Amy, I know, you're nodding the whole way through. So I was like, I know you're probably feeling some of this, or you've heard this before.
Both, I think that it's familiar to me of, like you have a plan in mind about how things are going to go. Something derails you, typically like an emotional experience, whether, and I feel like, for a lot of people, it's stress, sadness, or reward. I feel like those are common ones. There's not like, it's not limited to that. But I feel like, what we laid out is a very typical example of like what we would see most commonly with an emotional eating log. And what you'll see, and I feel like this is common, is that, Fridays tend to be hard, like you're stressed, you're exhausted after a long week, you want that reward, and it's like you're more likely because you are tired. To make a choice that's not ideal. And then once you get derailed, it's really hard to get yourself back on track. So, and the weekend's less structured, right? You don't have the structure of the week to be able to rely upon, so you can kind of get derailed for the whole weekend. And again, no judgment. The whole purpose of this is to recognize, like now that you've done something like this, you recognize, okay, Friday's a particularly challenging day for me. In the evening when I get off work, without the emotional eating log, you wouldn't be able to recognize that pattern, that habit, what your go tos are, and to be able to start to remind yourself of what the things that you could do instead. So just by doing this, you've like really increased your self-awareness. You know what the pulls and tendencies are, and you can start to then. This is an opportunity to kind of like introduce the self-compassion and to feel like, okay, I know what's happening. I can create a plan from this.
Definitely. All right.
So, logging and tracking. So, a food journal is kind of like built in mindfulness, right? It's this tool to help you to check in with yourself on how you feel before, during, and after you eat. Um, it's this way of being able to kind of create accountability. Lindsay talked about earlier that people, when they are tracking, they already start to make some changes because you're building the self awareness. You're reflecting on what you're doing, and it automatically some kind of curiosity is going to click in about, like, why am I doing this? And you're going to start to kind of make changes just because of the simple fact that you're observing. So it really is creating mindfulness, connection to yourself, accountability, awareness, all of those pieces. And then there's a relatively new study published in Obesity found that tracking what you eat actually takes about less than 15 minutes a day when you're doing it regularly. So in the beginning, it might take a little longer. You're familiarizing yourself with the app. You're starting to type stuff in, figuring out how to like break certain like foods or meals down. So it feels like a little bit more work in the beginning. But once you get the hang of it, the app will oftentimes if you're using an app, remember what you're eating, and it just becomes a habit like brushing your teeth. It gets quicker and quicker and quicker, and just another thing that you're doing. um, but logging foods can help you to lose weight by informing your choices for the future. It's that piece of the self-awareness and like like observing and understanding the data collection piece.
Definitely. And I was even going to say, that less than 15 minutes a day, right? Um, I have so many, myself included, I meal plan and prep and I log, but I do it for the week, right? So I'm already, because I'm meal planning and prepping, I already know what I'm having for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it's already done for the week. So some people are like, so you don't do it every day. I'm like, I don't have to because I've done it for the week in advance, right? And so it can take even less than 15 minutes. We've got people that use, like, I'm old school. I will write it. I've got a big planner and I write everything down. But we have a lot of our clients and patients who use apps. And so they said that even in the app, you can, log and track for the whole week and say, okay, this is what I'm going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So if you didn't want to do it day by day by day, you found yourself not doing it. You get to the next day and you're like, oh, I forgot last night. I can't remember what I had as a snack. Or maybe you do want to do it, for a full week, or maybe you want to do it in the morning ahead of your day. So there's all different kinds of ways to do what you're doing. And the more that you're doing it, it takes less and less time out of your day. That's really what we want you guys to get, is that once it becomes a habit and routine, it is so rote for you that it really doesn't take as much time as you think it does, or that it does in the beginning when you first get started.
Yeah.
All right, so logging tracking techniques. We mentioned this earlier. There are so many. There are old school food journals, like the one that I like to use. There are fitness journals and calendars. And obviously there are phone and computer apps such as MyFitnessPal or Verytastic. And we're going to give you guys a little overview of the stuff that's out there in the next few slides.
So old school for food journals, like pen and paper. I feel like works for a lot of people. It's a very kind of visceral thing. Some people enjoy that. It's really just about what works for you. You can download free printable food journal pages online. You can buy food or fitness journals. You can just use a notebook page and write in with you whatever you want. Whatever works for you. We're just kind of sharing ideas to be able to kind of stimulate your thinking around what appeals to you, what you feel drawn towards.
Definitely. That's the next few slides are just to give you guys some ideas. You do not have to use one or the other. You can, if you're already doing it, use what you're doing. This is just to give you some ideas of what's out there and what others have found helpful. So yeah, again, fitness journals. So there are many fitness journals that also have food logs included. So a lot of the time when clients or patients come in and they're wanting to do both, I will let them know that you can find food journals or fitness journals where both things are in there. So just to know, this is still the old school, this is still the pen and paper where you're writing things in, but there are many, many out there. You can do a Google search. You can go on Amazon. There's tons of them, so that you can find the ones that you feel fit what you would like.
And phone or computer apps, the two most popular ones that I find, and it sounds like, Lindsay and I are kind of aligned with this, are the Barrytastic app or MyFitnessPal. Um, These are apps that you can download for free on your phone. I think there's also options to pay for either one, but from what I understand, it's not necessary to do so. You can still get good use of the apps with the free versions. And I'm more familiar with MyFitnessPal, and with what I know about MyFitnessPal is that you log down what you eat, and it'll break down like all the different nutritional elements of what you're eating. It'll tell you the calorie loading. It'll encourage you for making certain choices. It remembers things that you write, so the next if you're eating like similar things, it's already in there. So once you plug it in, it's just a matter of finding it. You can very easily adjust portions. So if you've pre-tracked that you ate like a full cup of something and you were actually, like doing a really good job of tracking your hunger and fullness cues and recognize that you actually got content or full before you finished, you can very easily go back and adjust it from 1 cup to 3/4 of a cup or half a cup. Or if you didn't eat something, you can kind of just cancel it out. The great things about the apps are it will remind you to track. If you didn't track for lunch, it's going to be like, hey, you didn't track for lunch. And it's a really nice way to be able to kind of look back over, like what you consumed, like themes, and if you're kind of leaning in one direction or the other, it allows you to recognize how much protein, how much produce, how much carbohydrates, how many calories, just to be able to get an idea. And again, I'm going to keep coming back to this. No judgment. This is a way to be able to observe and to be able to self-reflect and learn and watch for themes and to be able to figure out what you want to kind of do more or less of eventually. I don't know if there's anything you want to add about these particular apps, Lindsay.
No, I mean, I feel like you covered it. I was more um, aware of MyFitnessPal. Verytastic is one that our dietitians are more aware of, and they definitely help people with. I think they've said that it's very much like MyFitnessPal, except for on the Verytastic app. I know on the MyFitnessPal, like once you put in your physical activity, it also adjusts what you need for calories, and the Verytastic doesn't do that. And I think that was the one thing that some of the patients liked about it was that it wasn't telling them they weren't meeting their caloric goals because it was based on more that bariatric goal. So, but very much the same from what I've heard. But I do know more about the MyFitnessPal.
Yeah.
So, but I've heard good things about both.
Same. I know that the Verytastic app is geared towards folks, pursuing weight loss surgery. So there is that element.
Yeah. All right. So, okay, so just another phone or computer app here is See How You Eat. It is the easiest, as you can see on there on the photo that we found. It says it's the easiest food diary ever. So it's another app that allows you to take pictures of what you eat. And it seems to be an app for those of us who are not as tech savvy. Maybe we shy away from the computer or the apps, but maybe there are also people out there who they don't want to do the old school, like writing it down. They do want something that's easier for them, but they kind of really struggle with this technology that's come around. They don't want something that has a lot of steps or bells and whistles to it. So, and Amy, did you want to add anything to that? I know that you actually have a little bit more experience with this one than I do. So,
I mean, not necessarily. I feel like you've captured it. I think it's, this one's great for people who are less tech. I mean, you literally just take a picture of your food and that's your food diary. That's your food journal. You're just taking pictures instead of kind of typing it all in. So it's really easy. It's simple and fun. Who doesn't like taking pictures of their food?
I know it's a whole thing. So, all right. Okay.
So, what we have here is, how-to video presentations specifically for MyFitnessPal. How to enter recipes, how to log your meals, and just the essentials. So if you're looking for a tutorial, if you're looking for a little support and really want to kind of like lean into all the things that you can do, how to do all the things, and really get like, the full vastness of the app, this is just different tutorials to be able to lean in and to be able to gather more information.
Yes, and for anyone who you're watching the video and maybe Amy and I actually thought about this as we were starting the webinar today. If it's video form, you may not be able to click on the links. So, we're in talks of like how to get like those resources out there. But one of the ways that we found this information was going to YouTube and just typing in MyFitnessPal, and a lot of these tutorials just came up. So, if you are interested in learning more, if you want these links, that's exactly how we found them, was going to YouTube and just typing in MyFitnessPal, and a lot of these tutorials just popped right up. So just something to remember on that. If you're like sitting here watching it going, now how am I supposed to click on these?
And we can also, like if you reach out to us and just want us to be able to send you the pieces, the slides from the PowerPoint that have all the clickable links, we can definitely do that as well. You can just send us a message and we'd be happy to do that as well. Whatever works, trying to make it easy and as accessible.
Yes, most definitely. We want you guys to have the resources.
Mhm.
So, and speaking of resources, more how-to videos. This one obviously goes over the Berrytastic app. So same thing, it's the overview, nutrition tracking, and then how to log your food. So just giving you guys a little bit more information if you haven't used it before, if you're struggling to log and do things in it, these are definitely some helpful links for you.
And then, just more options for video presentations and product links for food and fitness journals. There's so many options. Lindsay and I don't want you to feel kind of boxed in by the ones that we've just presented. So we've got here a video example of a food planner that goes back to like the pen and paper DIY, like just to be able to kind of, create it yourself. There's also Amazon link for food fitness planner, and another one. So just so that you have options. And we want to encourage you to like shop around, look around. There's so many different options. So, to encourage you to find the one that best suits, what you'll actually enjoy. Like there's a way to be able to kind of do this in a way that most speaks to you.
Exactly. We've given you these, but we're not saying that you should lock in to certain ones. It's more to really give you an idea of the vastness of products that are out there and finding one that's going to get you a little bit more motivated, because that's the thing that matters, is that you find something that keeps you doing the things that you want to be doing and making the changes you want. All right. So now we're going to touch a little bit on the meal planning and preparation. So I do love my research. So there's research in here just to, again, let you guys know that this is not just that psychologists or dietitians who are in these bariatric programs are all about meal planning and prep. We are, but there's research that backs up why we're all about these and we talk about this. So researchers in France found that people who meal plan are more likely to have a better quality diet. So just they're choosing things that give that better quality. They also associated with lower odds of struggling with obesity in both men and women, and struggling with overweight in women. Um, Meal planning is one of the tools that helps to address improving people's food choices based on a lack of time. And we've talked about that earlier, where, usually if someone gets to the end of the day, and on our other webinars we talked about, if someone gets to a point at the end of the day where maybe they've gone through that hunger stage where they're starving, that seems to be the time where not only do we make poor food choices at the end of the day when we haven't meal planned or prepped, but we also tend, if we're already very hungry and we got some emotions going on, if we didn't have that meal plan or prep, we normally tend to choose the things that we're trying to steer clear of. So this research just backs that up, that people who meal plan and prep tend to make better food choices, and it improves their food choices based on that lack of time that a lot of us struggle with.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I feel like it's about thinking ahead, right? To have a plan for yourself so that when you are taxed or tired or stressed or struggling or super hungry, you already have it laid out for yourself. You don't have to think in that stressed, taxed place. It's you've already done the thinking for yourself.
Definitely. Yeah.
So there's also, some research based in Minnesota where they found that a common response to stress was a fix a quick meal or a quick or easy meal. Um, and it's kind of like a go-to. It's kind of like a knee jerk, right? It's comforting. So if you're stressed, it's a way to be able to kind of tend to yourself that's maybe doesn't align with your long-term health goals. But meal planning was also found to be linked to a reduction in unhealthy snacking because you've thought ahead. You're thinking about like what you're going to have over the course of the day. So if you have a pull, instead of kind of responding to that right then and there, you already kind of have a general plan. So you know what the next thing that you're going to be eating is. And then having healthy options when preparing a quick or easy meal may increase the healthfulness of the home food environment during moments of elevated stress. They've done so much research that looks at how we choose what to eat, and they found that we tend to choose what is visible and in close proximity. So that means that you got to have those healthy options visible and in close proximity, and it will increase the likelihood that you're going to actually eat those options as well.
All right. So continued meal planning and prep. It's important. That's why we keep talking about it.
There it
So
is.
more research, and this goes right into what Amy just said. They have found that we tend to choose what is visible and in close proximity. And I remember something, and I cannot remember exactly, but I think it's within 3 feet. Like if you have something within 3 feet of you, you are going to continue. So you want to have those healthy options that are at eye level when you open the fridge or the cupboard or your pantry, or maybe keep an attractive clear bowl of fruit on your counter instead of maybe the cookie jar or the candy bowl. That those are very cool looking, but which one are you going to choose? And then you try to keep those less ideal options either out of the home, or if you do have people in your home that do enjoy those options and maybe they're not on that same journey that you are, maybe putting those in the back of the pantry or the cupboard so they're not something that you're going to see every time you open the fridge, the freezer, the cupboard, the drawer, whatever that is. So it really is that idea, like Amy said earlier, that you are going to choose things that are visible and in close proximity. So plan for that. Don't think of it as like a weakness, like, oh, I have this candy bowl that I passed 20 times, but on that 21st time, I'm going to take that piece of candy. Well, sure, but for 20 times you did, like engage in your willpower. It's just that 21st time that it got you because it's right there. So it's about moving those things, out of your sight and your eye line, and maybe putting things in your sight and eye line that would again keep you in mind of your goals.
Absolutely. So here we've got more meal planning and preparation resources. We've got a bariatric meal prep cookbook on Amazon, a bariatric air fryer cookbook also on Amazon. Just got an air fryer myself and am loving it. It's so much fun. It's very exciting. Yeah, I feel like it's still new to me. Also, easy 5 ingredient bariatric cookbook, or eating healthy on a budget. Like a how-to guide. So again, these are just options. Check them out, follow the links, like read the information, read the reviews, and see what speaks to you.
Definitely. And so one of the things, the reason that we put these resources together is that a lot of the times bariatric patients will come in and either they don't know how to cook in a way that would be healthier, or they don't really cook at all. And maybe they don't have that experience. Maybe we've all heard of the air fryers, right? How awesome they are, but maybe they don't know how to use it. Maybe they don't know what they would prepare in it. And I've definitely had people come in and talk to me about how much of a struggle it is to eat healthy when they have a fixed income. And so, even that last link is something where, and not even that one. I mean, you can Google, how to eat healthy on a budget, and try and figure out for yourself, like how to make this happen instead of, feeling like it's not doable and it's unrealistic. Maybe looking at it and going, you know what, there's got to be a way. People do this and I can do this, and looking at these resources. That's why we wanted to provide the resources, because we do understand that sometimes this feels overwhelming. And so we want you guys to actually have places you can look and start going to, well, just expand your knowledge.
Yeah. The body scan. So this is one of my favorite tools. It's really a way to be able to check in with yourself. It's a pause point, right? So a way to do a brief body scan. Put your hand on your chest. We put a hand on our chest, it activates neurons in the brain. It kind of like wakes the brain up. And then if you're comfortable closing your eyes, and you want to kind of assess, how are you feeling physically? Am I tired? Where's my tension? Any aches and pains? And then how am I feeling emotionally? Am I down? Am I stressed? Am I worried? And you kind of want to ask your body, like, when did I last eat? Do I need some water? You're kind of like literally scanning the inside of your body. How you doing in there, body? What do you need? What can I do for you? We are so in our heads and externally focused that we don't take a moment to pause and check in on our bodies. And there is so much information in our bodies that we would likely miss. So, this is just a way to be able to create a pause point, increase your self awareness, and check in with yourself. If you can identify that you're stressed, it's going to decrease the likelihood that you're going to rely upon food, and you're going to remember that you have a whole slew of other ideas to be able to tend to your stress. And you can also think about, like, okay, are you needing nurturance in the moment? Do you need to move your body? Or do you just need to distract yourself? This is just another tool to help you be able to kind of connect and increase your self-awareness.
Okay, I absolutely love this tool. And it's one of those like where you automatically, when Amy was talking through it and I put my hand, and closed my eyes, I automatically started deep breathing. So it's one of those things where it takes very little to, check in. And deep breathing, we know, like 3 deep breaths can actually change the way that we feel, exponentially change the way that we feel significantly. So yes, I also absolutely love this tool, and definitely, tell clients about it so that they can do, because it's a very simple thing. It doesn't cost you anything. It takes very little time. And it's a way to just check in with yourself that just kind of gets you back in touch with what might be going on. All right. And yeah, and I think this is just our references slide, just to let you know that we're, again, not just promoting what we believe, while we do believe it, we do have references and resources and research that really would also allow you guys to go and look up the information, read a little bit more about it yourself. I'm very much about self-education and following resources. So, we wanted to provide this as well so you guys could see where this comes from and learn more for yourselves. So, like I said at the very beginning, this is, one of many webinars that we're doing. This was about the logging and tracking. I hope that all of you who were here today and listened today got something out of this, got some key points from it, maybe learned more resources or more just about why we ask you to do what we ask you to do to help achieve your goals. I'm so thankful for all of you who started and probably finished the webinar with us today. And I hope you have a wonderful day.